Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and welcome to the last review of the Toejam Earl games with Toejam Earl back in the groove.
Yes, we finally get to close out our look at this classic series with possibly the best in the entire bunch. Let's find out.
Yeah, and if you guys didn't notice, this is the first time we're doing our virtual game review. It's not our preferred way, and it's why it took so long to get this out here. Hope everyone is staying safe.
Social distance. Wash your hands.
Be safe.
That's all I got. Don't be stupid.
Don't be Jim.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get into it.
Yeah. Released in March of 2019, this was developed and published by Human Nature Studios and had a physical release thanks to limited run games on the Switch and PS4. Came out on Linux, Mac OS, Microsoft Windows, to Switch, to PS4, and the Xbox One. This game is a love letter to the entire series. It was the result of a Kickstarter that raised over $500,000, and really, this game just brings all the best of the series into one nice convenient package. How does it do it? Well, we'll tell you right now.
When it comes to the graphics, this game is very reminiscent of the original Toejam Earl, except everything looks a whole lot cleaner. The developers decided to go with this more comic book look. It still has that whole 2D feel to it, implanted over a 3D plane, but it does look very interesting. And one thing I mentioned to Jim is, this game will have a lot of longevity because of the way it looks. With that being said, I personally found it to be okay as far as graphics. Don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of character, great coloring, animations look good, and for the most part it stays running fairly smooth. I did find a little bit of issues when you had way too many things on the screen, but still, it is a very visually appealing look, and I couldn't knock it too much. So, when it comes to scores, I gave it a 7, Jim gave it an 8. He really liked the clean look of the graphics, especially compared to the earlier games. For me, I feel like a game coming out in this generation could have just offered a little bit more. So when it comes to beer, I'm only going to add 1. It's a solid looking game. I just wish there was something more added to this classic franchise.
The sound. When it comes to Toejam Earl for the entire series, one thing that you can never take away from it is the music in the game, because it's always been excellent. And this game's no different. There's a lot of tracks that are brought back from all 3 previous games, and they might have been remixed a little bit or redone in one way or another, but they all come out sounding so good. And there's nothing more satisfying than going in an elevator, landing on a new planet, or, well, part of the planet, and just hearing such a familiar tune in the back of your head. It's awesome. I think there's a few new tracks here and there too, but to be honest with you, I'm not as much of a Toejam Earl aficionado to be able to say, oh, this is definitely different from what came before. But like the rest of the series, a lot of funk, a lot of hip-hop, a lot of very bass and percussion heavy kind of tracks, and it's just all done really well. The voice acting in the game's pretty good, and I believe the guys came back from Toejam Earl 3 to reprise their roles, because, well, it does sound like them. And to be honest with you, they do a good job. There's not a ton of voice acting in the game as you'd expect, but what you get here, it's definitely good enough. Sound effects, they get the job done. They're perfectly fine. Nothing too exceptional in going on here, but you know what? It doesn't take away from it either. But when it comes down to it, it's all about the music, so we both gave it 8s. When it comes to beer, I'm just going to add 1 beer, and it's just going to be, while I do love hearing all the old tracks again, maybe I would have liked to have heard some more memorable newer tracks as well.
The control. Full disclosure, Jim and I both played this game on the Switch, so I'm not exactly sure how this would work on an Xbox or PS4 or any other type of controller. So our reference is with the Switch controller, and to be honest, we both said the Switch controller is fine, but it's not the most intuitive. However, the control itself is a fairly simple layout. Like the original Toejam Earl, you have your movement buttons, you have an action button, you have a button that brings up your presence, you have this new button that actually allows you to search areas. So it kind of expands your window and lets you see what's around you. And then you have a button that can toggle your map on and off. One of my minor complaints is with the amount of buttons you have on a Switch, they decided that you needed to hold that button in to really bring up the full map. And then you have your bumpers, which allow you to do interactions to talk with different characters. All in all, it is a very simplistic control scheme because, like the original Toejam Earl, you're really just focusing on finding presents, but now you have the option to search. The inputs are absolutely fine and there's no issue. You still have that feeling that I complained about in the original game, which is you feel very sluggish moving through the game. And I guess at this point it's something you just get used to. And when some of these maps get really big, it's understandable. You find enough presence with your different high tops or rocket shoes that you can overcome it, but still, it was just a little bit annoying. When it comes to scores though, I gave it an 8, Jim gave it a 9. It still works absolutely fine, and it won't stop you from enjoying the game. When it comes to beer, I'm just going to add 2, because I still wish they would have used all the buttons on the Switch, and more I'm seeing these games not utilize all the buttons appropriately.
The gameplay. Well, first and foremost, this game goes right back to the tried and true version of the original Toejam Earl, where you're going up elevators to all the different layers of the planet to try and get the pieces together for the Rapmaster ship. But how you do it is just an amalgamation of everything that came before it in the series. So you have the basic overall gameplay of Toejam Earl 1. You have the Hyperfunk Zone and the play-along music mini-games and even the tree-shaking mechanic from Toejam Earl Panic and Funkatron. And then you have a lot of power-ups and enemies and characters, really, that you would have seen in Toejam Earl 3, and including knocking on houses and trying to investigate them. So there's just everything is just mixed together. I'm not going to say there's a whole lot new here if you're very familiar with the series, but in terms of just being an overall Toejam Earl experience, I think this is the most complete that you're going to get. The randomized nature of the gameplay is back here, as well as having a set world that you can practice on, and harder difficulty modes that you unlock once you beat the game normally. And besides that, you have more characters that you can unlock. You have different versions of each character, so it's kind of cool that when you start out, you see the stats for every character that you can pick, so you can pick and choose your gameplay experience there. There's special items hidden throughout levels and through entire gameplay sessions where you can unlock a special hat that you can either use next time in a different level that you get to, or an entire gameplay experience. So, some hats will let you change bad food into good food, or make you be able to last in water longer, stuff like that. And there's even special ones that go through that you can just unlock to make your entire gameplay session easier, which is a really cool thing and adds to the overall replayability, which we'll get to later. And of course, there's multiplayer. So we'll get into multiplayer later, but there is so many options for it. Basically, it isn't straying too far from the if you like Toejam Earl, then you're gonna like this game kind of formula. It's still its very own kind of roguelike adventure with not as much an emphasis on direct action and combat, more on item management and really luck of the draw. So overall, we both gave it 7s. It's Toejam Earl, so you're either gonna love it or hate it, but what you get here, as we've said before, is just a great complete package. And when it comes to beer, I'm just gonna add 1 beer for unfortunately not trying to add that much more new into the series.
The originality. Oh, yikes. This is extremely tough for this game, especially in this franchise at this point. Most of the games went downhill as far as bringing you new ideas, and this one actually doesn't do it at all. It does combine every previous game in one form or another, but all in all, nothing else is new. It's still the same old searching for pieces of your ship, finding presents, avoiding humans, limited attacks, and going from world to world. So, with all that being said, I gave it a 1, Jim gave it a 2. When it comes to beer, I'm gonna add 2 beers because while I do appreciate the fact that this game really is a love letter to the original franchise, I would have loved something a little more unique brought to modern audiences.
For playability, I can keep quick. Like I said before, you have the standardized mode, you have all the random modes, you have all the different harder difficulties that you can get after it, you have an endless mode, and you have all the co-op options, so you can have up to 4-player local co-op or online co-op. So the fact that you have the randomized nature of the game, and the fact you have all the different co-op options, and that you can play with buddies without having to leave your couch with a buddy across the country, how can I not give it high scores? So Brian gave it a 9 and I gave it a 10, and when it comes to beer, you don't need any.
So overall, as you can tell from our scores, this is the best Toejam Earl game by far. I mean, it takes basically everything you love from the old series, makes it much cleaner, gives it a better presentation, and it's just a better running game in general.
Yeah, it's pretty much, if you're a fan of the series, then you will absolutely love this title because, like we said before, it's just a mishmash of everything put together. And if you've never played the series before, I'll just say screw everything else and just stick with this one. It's easily the one to really jump into the series. And then if you like it, then try the other titles. But this is the one that's probably the must-play of all of them.
Yeah, so when it comes to scores, I gave it a 7, Jim gave it an 8. Now, although this is the best game, as I was telling Jim before we started this, the problem I have is that we just played through all the Toejam Earl games. So this didn't really feel like anything new to me. It almost felt a bit tiresome, but I could really see if you were a huge fan of the series growing up and you haven't played it, this is a perfect love letter to all of you out there. So when we combined all of our scores together, comes in at 7.5. It is the highest score we gave any of these games, and it's right in the middle of where Jim and I fall for this game.
Yeah, all the numbers worked out. I mean, if there's... I grew up with Panagon Funkatron, but barely touched the others, so this was actually the one that I jumped into first before going back to the others, so I almost think I could appreciate them a little more for what they were trying after seeing it in this best way, just to know what could be, so... I don't know, maybe I went in reverse order in a weird way, but it just gives me both an appreciation more for this one and for the older ones.
Yeah. So... with that, guys, thank you for sticking with us through all these Toejam Earl reviews. If you haven't already, make sure you check out the other ones. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers, guys.
When it comes to beer pairing, I had to go with the DeClaw Brewing Company's Funk Blueberry Citrus Wheat Beer. This is really delicious, and Jim and I have talked about this a few times on the podcast. It's a really easy session beer, only coming in at 5%, and it packs a ton of flavor, but it doesn't overpower you. So when you're playing a game like this, you can easily go through 3 or 4 beers and just have a nice little buzz going while you enjoy this modern retelling of such a classic franchise. So grab yourself at least a 6-pack, sit back and enjoy. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. Cheers, guys. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.